Hey, so we're doing chapter 7. You should have just finished chapter 6, and I hope you enjoyed that chapter because I did. Let's do a brief recap of the chapter, or not even a chapter, let's do the book. So we met Jordan, we met his mom, we met Tyshell. Jordan misses his dad, right? So he joined the gang. The gang is called the Cobras. The Cobras is a gang that is led by King. Jordan admires King. He reminds him of his dad or like a brother because he's missing his dad, so he's feeling more complete now. So in order to be in this gang, he needs to go purchase a gun. So he goes to his grandfather's house and he steals a watch. This watch is an heirloom that's been passed down from generation to generation. On his way to pawn the watch, he actually gets transported to slavery times, and he ends up in the woods, and he actually runs into his great-great-great-great-grandfather, Uriah. They are looking for the watch. He does not have possession of the watch anymore. It has disappeared. We find out that the watch is actually with the Master Henning. When he explains himself, Jordan tells him, hey, I'm not really from this time. He tells him the whole bit. Of course, the Master doesn't believe him. He thinks he's crazy, and he actually thinks he's a runaway. So until they could figure out who he belongs to, he says that he can stay there and live with Uriah's family. Jordan actually gets to spend the night with Uriah's family. He gets to eat what they eat. He sleeps where they sleep. And in the morning, he gets to work where they work. So in chapter 6, we got to see him stripped of all of his clothes. He was given basically just a shirt, a really long shirt to wear. He had to work in the fields, and he actually got whipped for the first time while working in the fields because he fainted due to hydration and heat. So now we're going to see what's happening after that in chapter 7. Let's see if he's actually going to ever get away to get the watch. Okay, so again, I'm reading this chapter with you. I haven't read it prior to this, so I'm giving you my thoughts and I'm asking you questions based off of that while I'm reading. So we're doing it together. Okay, so of course you need your book, you need your pen or pencil, and of course you need your notebook, something to write with, and we're going to get started. So, chapter 7, hot, sore, thirsty, and bleeding. Jordan couldn't believe he was still alive after that endless morning in the cotton field. Clara had done all she could to help him. When the driver and the overseer weren't watching, Clara had come over to his side of the road, picked his cotton, and put it in his sack. Jordan now knew that they meant business when they said not to put the bolls in with the cotton and not to break the branches. But he was slow. There was no more to picking cotton than he'd figured. Once when the water boy came by again, Clara had moistened a rag and tied it around Jordan's head to keep him cool. It helped. At noon, the driver blew the conch shell, and the families got together in the field to eat. Uriah's mom untied that greasy bag she wore around her waist and gave Jordan and each member of her family one corn cake and a tiny piece of fried soft pork. If they hadn't shared with him, Jordan was sure he would have died of hunger. During the meal, Uriah and his brothers and sisters joked and told riddles, none of which Jordan understood, but they smiled at him and treated him like he was one of the family. After about 10 minutes, Buster blew the conch shell again, and everybody got up and went back to work. Uriah had told the truth. Lunch was just a corn cake eaten on the run. Amazingly, the afternoon was harder than the morning because it was hotter. Jordan's whipped back hurt. So did his shoulders and arms, and his fingers, which were pricked raw from the cotton plants. Whenever he saw spots in front of his eyes, he put his head down the way Uriah's mom had told him to. He didn't dare pass out again. The cotton field was an endless hell. Clara was so far ahead of him that she looked like a dot amid the shimmering heat waves. When she dragged her heavy sack to the basket, she stopped to see how Jordan was doing. When the overseer and driver weren't looking, she stuffed some of her cotton into his sack. Then she'd rub his head with a damp cloth and give him a hug. To Jordan, she was a lifesaver. Even after the sun went down, Jordan and the others worked on and on until it was too dark to see. Then, when they heard the conch shell announce quitting time, they dragged their sacks to the baskets for one last dumping. Jordan's muscles ached from the day's work. His whipped back stung with every move, and his fingers bled. Even worse, his basket was half empty. He knew it would be too light and braced himself for another whipping. Uriah's mom had trouble dragging her basket, so Jordan helped her move it along. No more of this. Jordan would get the watch tonight and say goodbye to this place forever. Clara and Jordan followed the others to the building at the edge of the field. Light from a lantern flickered in the doorway. Frogs croaked and crickets chirped. The slaves, dragging their baskets, formed a line outside. Jordan trembled and wanted to run, but it was dark, and the only hiding place around here was the woods. At night, even Uriah's cabin seemed safer. Mr. Travis hung Clara's basket onto a scale. He seemed surprised, as if he couldn't believe what he saw, and waited again. "You're short," he told her. 6 pounds short. He pulled her over to one side where 2 other slaves stood with their wrists tied. Jordan guessed that they were waiting to be whipped. Buster tied a rope around Clara's wrist too. Jordan felt miserable. He couldn't just stand there and let her be punished. She was short because she'd helped him. He'd probably be whipped for opening his mouth, but he was bound to get it anyway for short weight. "It's not her fault," Jordan told Travis. "Her basket was short because she was busy teaching me." The overseer hooked Jordan's basket on the scale, then glared at him with icy blue eyes. The lamp hanging on the hook above his head threw a yellow beam on his long, bony face. "Who asked you?" Jordan knew there was no safe way to answer that question, and said nothing. But Travis continued to stare at Jordan and asked again, "Well, answer me, boy. Who asked you?" Jordan lifted his chin and stared right back at him. "Nobody. That's why I'm telling you. You gotta be taught to hold that uppity tongue, boy." He weighed Jordan's basket. "You ain't pulling your weight. If she was teaching you to pick, she wasn't doing a good job." The overseer glanced at Buster, who stood beside him. "Take him out to the post, Buster. 10 lashes, and don't go shorting on him because I'll be counting every one. This lazy nigga's gotta learn some respect and how to work." 10 lashes? Jordan wondered how he would live through it. The 3 he'd had in the field still burned. The blood had dripped up, but his wounds would be torn open. What if they got infected? There wouldn't be any medicines here to save his life. When Buster grabbed him by the arm and led him out into the night, Jordan thought he was probably going to die. Trapped in this nightmarish time warp. When Buster tied his wrist to the post, Jordan thought about Mom, Tashelle, and Daddy. Grandpa, too. They'd never know what happened to him. He was sure that they'd never see them again, ever. King and the other homeboys popped in and out of his thoughts, but they didn't stick the way his family did. One thing, if he did die from this, he wouldn't get beat up for not making the meeting at Baker's parking lot. What a weird thought. He needed a prayer and tried to remember the ones he learned when he was little and went to Sunday school. But his mind was racing too fast. The only words that came to him were, "God help me." Okay, so number 1, how does Jordan feel, or let's fix this. Number 1, what is the relationship between Jordan and Uriah's mom, Clara? What do you think their relationship is? Describe it. Use at least 3 to 4 sentences to describe how Jordan feels about about Uriah's mom, Clara, and how do you think Clara feels about Jordan? Number 2, do you think Jordan should have just stayed quiet instead of admitting that Clara helped him? Or do you think he did a good thing by admitting that she stopped to help him? Again, number 2, do you think Jordan made a good decision by being honest and saying that Clara helped him? Or do you think he should have just stayed quiet? All right. Again, I'm going to leave the questions up here longer just so you have time to write them down, or while you're pausing it, it's still up here for you, but I'm going to keep reading. Jordan listened to the crickets and frogs and heard Buster stirring around several feet away. It was so dark that he couldn't see much. What was taking him so long? He wanted to get it over with. He was bracing himself for the first lash when all of a sudden Buster whispered in his ear, "I'm going to crack the whip on the ground, and every time you hears it, you scream loud as you can. Then after about 4 or 5 lashes, you go dead quiet. They all faints after 4 or 5. Buster was going to fake it. Relief surged through Jordan. "Why are you doing this for me?" he asked. "We coloreds got to stick together. You just lucky Mr. Travis ain't watching. And if you say one word about this to any living soul, you're going to get the real thing from me." Jordan realized then how big a risk this man was taking for him. What if he finds out? If he don't kill me, I reckon I'll be sold to the trader. Would he really kill you? It happened more than once around here. But that's murder, Jordan whispered. Killing a nigga don't count for murder. The law don't protect no colors. The unfairness of it made Jordan so furious that he wanted to yell even before Buster cracked the whip. "You ready?" Buster asked. "Yeah," Jordan said, "and thanks." When Buster finished the fake beating, Jordan realized that his acting job wasn't over. He had to pretend to be in pain, but he couldn't let anyone see his back, so he staggered into the hut moaning and groaning. Uriah spread his blanket out for Jordan, who sat on it, his back just a few inches from the wall. Uriah, his dad Seth, and the other kids stood around him, trying to comfort him. Jordan noticed that Uriah's mom hadn't come in yet. He hoped Buster would fake it for her too, but what if Travis watched? Or did the beating himself? Jordan yelled when Seth pulled off his shirt. He hoped Seth wouldn't notice that his shirt had only dried blood on it. If he did, he asked no questions. Jordan pulled his back just a little further away from the wall when Seth poured a strong-smelling liquid on it. The stuff hurt like the devil, and he couldn't help moaning. "What is that?" Jordan asked. "Turpentine," Seth said. "Nothing better for open sores." Then Jordan heard screaming in the distance. Was it real or fake? For Buster's sake, Jordan hoped his own had sounded that real. A little later, Uriah's mom staggered into the hut, breathing heavily. Then she collapsed in the doorway. The blood from her stripes showed through her burlap clothes. The rest of the family helped her onto her blanket. Uriah's dad went out to borrow more turpentine while Rab brewed her some rotten-smelling herb tea. Clara's hurt was real. Her groans sent Jordan on a real guilt trip. So that's what she got for helping him through the worst day of his life. It was no use trying to hold back his tears. Rab must have thought Jordan's sobs came from the whipping because he made a cup of that awful tea. Jordan thanked him, but begged off, saying that he felt too sick to drink. He was so exhausted that he gave up all thoughts of sneaking into the big house that night. He'd get some sleep, then in the morning pretend to be sicker than he was and get excused from work. Then one way or another, nothing, not even the risk of the whip, would stop him from getting inside that mansion and getting his hands on that watch. Whew, you guys, I almost feel like crying. That was a really powerful chapter. And when you think about how Jordan feels about his mom in the first chapter, and then how Clara just sacrificed her cotton, because she could have easily been like, he's on his own, I'm not going to give him any cotton, I got to look out for myself because I can get whipped. But she stopped to help him when she could have gotten in trouble, and she gave him her cotton, and she came up short, and now she's gotten whipped just for this boy that she doesn't even know. And so I want you to think about, number 3, What do you think Clara is thinking? Right now, what do you think Clara is thinking? Do you think that she regrets helping him? I want to know, what do you think Clara is thinking right now? And number 4, I want you to think about your own mother or grandmother or parent that you have right now, or guardian. How do you think the sacrifices that they've made to you, for you, compared to Clara's sacrifice for Jordan? Think about your parent or guardian and the sacrifices that they make for you, just the same way that Clara made for Jordan. How does that make you look at the person who cares for you? And how does that make you think about the sacrifices that they make for you on a daily basis? And number 5, when you think about those sacrifices that they make for you, how does that make you want to change or treat them? Now, if you already treat them, your parents or your guardians, like they're the best thing ever, then continue to do that. But if you don't, how could you show your appreciation a lot better? Because in the beginning of this book, did Jordan treat his mom like she was the best thing in the world? Not at all. His mom had worked really hard, she had a good job, and she was moving them to a way better neighborhood than the one that they were in. She was working very hard to make sure Jordan and his sister had a wonderful life, and he wasn't very grateful for it. And so now he's in another time period where this mother sacrificed her food for him in chapter 5 when she did not eat and she didn't know Jordan. So she sacrificed her food, she sacrificed her time and her cotton, and she even got whipped so that Jordan, even though he got whipped anyway, but she made an effort to support him and care for him and treat him like he was her own. So how could you show your thankfulness and that you're grateful to your parents with all of the sacrifices that they make for you? So those are 5 questions. I'll put the questions at the bottom in the comment section as well, just so you'll have them all just in case. Also, I'll do that for chapter 6 also, so no worries. So that's it for our weekend reading. Chapter 6 and chapter 7 was so good, and I think I'm gonna do one more chapter tonight because I really want to know what happens next. But I hope you guys have I hope you guys have a great weekend, and I'll see you guys on Monday. Bye bye.